True North has broken an unbelievable story about a 4-year-old and his family getting evicted from the Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver because they are not vaccinated. What on earth is going on in our country? I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is The Candice Malcolm Show. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. This is one of those stories that just absolutely makes you stop in your tracks and just think about where we are as a country. This is a really, really heart-wrenching story, and I'm really pleased and proud of reporter and editor Harley Sims, who broke the story. He was the very first one to report it. So basically, the story is that a 4-year-old boy is battling leukemia. He's in the hospital in Vancouver, and his family is staying at the Ronald McDonald House. This is sort of a typical kind of practice that a hospital will specialize in a certain type of treatment in a big city, so a city like Vancouver or Toronto, and families from all over the country, all over the sort of rural parts of the province, can go and use the Ronald McDonald House to stay, to live there, because they have to live in Vancouver, which is obviously an incredibly expensive city. They have to live there while their child is undergoing this treatment. And so this new policy got rolled out, the Ronald McDonald House, saying that everybody who was there, everybody age 5 and up, had to be vaccinated. Otherwise, they're going to get evicted. And basically, the story is a father who just is sort of beside himself that him and his family are about to get thrown out in the midst of their child's cancer treatment. And he posted a video of himself. It went viral online. And Harley was the first one to talk to him, first one to interview him, first one to get it up. So Harley, thanks so much for joining the show, and thanks for your excellent reporting on this.
I appreciate it, Candice. I think I just finished writing the story about, Quebec Premier Legault's announcement that they were going to make vaccines mandatory in Quebec under the guise of this, healthcare fee. And of course, there being the second jurisdiction in the Western world to do this outside of Austria. There's just so much going on. I mean, it's hard to choose, right? But this came across my desk, I think about 7 or 8 last night. It was a posting on Twitter of a video of a distraught father who is staying, as you mentioned, at Ronald McDonald House with his young family. They are from Kelowna. They had both left their jobs. He's a electrician. He just passed his test over Christmas. His wife had left her job so they could move to Vancouver, while their 4-year-old son, Jack, gets treatment for leukemia at BC Children's Hospital. They've been there since October. He told me all about it. Their son one day had trouble walking, and they just kept trying to work around it. And he said one day his kid just gave him this look that was just precociously full of pain, and he knew something was wrong, and the child was diagnosed with leukemia. They airlifted him into Vancouver. They've been there ever since. And on Monday, they received a notice from Ronald McDonald House saying that there was a new policy to be brought in. Beginning January 17th, everybody 5 and up staying at Ronald McDonald House would have to provide proof of full COVID vaccination, that is 2 shots. There was a provision, or a grace period, as they called it, for people who are already staying there, like the Furgason family, where they would have until January 31st to get 1 shot. As I wrote in the story, and as he told me, his wife was crying, and he said, "Look, this can't be real. This isn't real. There's no way." And he stayed up all night Monday night thinking about it. And on Tuesday, he decided that he was going to make a stand and make a video. And he rehearsed. It's quite well done. He's very articulate. That's because he went over everything in his head. And he confronted staff, and he demanded to know why this was the case, why it was that, for example, people who both vaccinated and unvaccinated can carry COVID. It made no sense. And it's not just about him. He stressed it wasn't about him. It's about every 5-year-old up who's staying at Ronald McDonald House with cancer, life-threatening diseases. Some of these children are dying. Their families are staying there. Even if the parents are vaccinated, and they don't want their child vaccinated, which, there's another family from Kelowna in that situation, they would have to leave. And so he, God bless him, he could not believe it was happening. He said, this is evil. It's straight up evil. And I just want everybody to know about it. And I just called him up and I just said, tell me your story. What can I do? I want to let everybody in Canada certainly know. And I said, what can we do? What can we do for you coming out of this? And he said, I just want prayers. I just want prayers for my family. And maybe if somebody out there knows somewhere we could stay until June, which is when they expect Jack's treatments to be finished, that'd be great. And that's all he wanted.
Wow. Well, it's such a heart-wrenching story. It's awful. Any story with kids getting sick and dealing with that kind of trauma is just hard enough to grapple with and deal with. I was reading through his post and reading your story and watching the video, and it's just very, very heart-wrenching. And then, on top of that, usually when people are in this situation, the worst situation you could possibly imagine being in, you're met with charity and kindness and love and compassion. And that's sort of the underlying purpose of the Ronald McDonald House. I mean, what an amazing charity. What an amazing service they offer, allowing families a place to stay while they're going through this horrible, horrific thing in their life. And yet here we see sort of the exact opposite of that, saying, because you don't comply with our ideology, we're going to throw you out on the street. It's just so wrong on so many levels. And so tell us a little bit about what happened, because I know that they have a GoFundMe campaign. Their video has gone viral. I know it got picked up by some U.S. sort of influencers or famous journalists like Steven Crowder. I don't know if he's a journalist. Famous podcast hosts, I guess I call him. And last time I checked, as of last night, the GoFundMe campaign that he was trying to raise $5,000. I think he's up at $93,000. So an incredible response from people out there, obviously sympathetic with the situation. But how did this story go viral so quickly?
One thing I was asked was, is this the moment when people wake up and realize what's happening with these vaccine mandates? It's, I'm sure we all remember years ago with migrants, there was a child washed up on a beach. Is that sort of moment where, when we're doing this to children with cancer, families facing children who are dying, is this when we finally wake up? And I think that's why everybody who saw the video flocked to it. It's certainly why I wanted to cover it. It's certainly why it picked up attention in the United States immediately. Jack Prosobiec picked it up right away. He posted the GoFundMe at the top of his Twitter page. Crowder, I've lost count, actually. I don't think I've checked for a couple hours, but it's been picked up across the world, actually. And Mr. Furgason, Austin Furgason, he's not naive. He's politically self-aware. He knows what's going on, and that's why he was armed with positions and information when he confronted staff. And I think same thing with him as with a lot of people. They can't believe this is happening. They're stunned. And that's what I think one of the reasons why people are so kind of hesitant to push back. They say, this is Canada. He even said to the administrator at Ronald McDonald House in his video, look at the national anthem. This is about being strong and free. We can't do this. We don't discriminate in Canada. We don't segregate in Canada. And so he said, when he was lying there Monday night, that this was something that he had to stand up for, and just make people aware that if it's going to happen in a place where children are fighting for their lives, a place where people have donated money to save sick and dying children, that's the end of it. He said, this is, if it's happening here, this is the end of it. And he said he can't believe we're at this point, that the country has gotten to this, where this is actually happening. And I was speaking on Mississauga radio earlier, and I just said, well, yes, it's horrific. And I'm not really surprised anymore at the things I'm hearing about this. But the more people like Austin who speak out, record this stuff, who let us know, let True North know, we can remind them that you feel something weird's going on, you're not wrong. And there are a lot of other people out there that feel the same way. And we can start to, raise our voices together and push back, because this ends when we say it ends.
Well, God bless this man for having that strength and that conviction. Again, such a horrific time in his life and trying to deal with that. I mean, just the logic of it on its own doesn't stand up, because right now we're dealing with the Omicron wave. We know that Omicron hits everybody. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. It doesn't matter if you're triple vaxxed or not. Everyone's getting it. Look at the hospital statistics over in Ontario. And we see that 3/4 of the people in the hospital right now are vaccinated. They're vaccinated. So obviously COVID breaks through. This strain of COVID breaks through, and I think that the justification for vaccine mandates is falling apart, because we still have to go into lockdown, and we it didn't get us out of the pandemic as it was promised, and yet it seems like the people who are imposing it are like tightening their grip. You mentioned Francois Legault wanting to impose an additional tax onto the unvaccinated. Justin Trudeau's rhetoric is like turned up. The dial is like at like 200, and he's completely okay with scapegoating and vilifying this one group. It's like, at a time when the logic for the vaccine mandates is completely falling apart, you see people pushing it with even more fervently pushing it, which shows you that this is about science, this is about ideology, and this is about power and authority. And then to add that extra layer on top of that you're talking about 5-year-olds, that anyone who's not vaccinated over the age of 5, like the idea that adults should get vaccinated, it's like, okay, adults can die from COVID. Little kids, you don't. And I understand wanting to protect the Ronald McDonald House, because there are a lot of people who are sick in there, and autoimmune compromise and that kind of stuff. But the reality is that COVID is still getting in. So it just seems like we're at this impasse now, where one side is ratcheting up their tactics and their rhetoric. And it looks like if this is any sign of things to come, that the other side is starting to stand up for themselves as well. Is that sort of what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, to start off with, I had 2 cousins who had cancer as children. Their family stayed at Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver. They're from Kelowna. So this struck a chord with me. And I have profound respect for Ronald McDonald House and what they do. Who can afford to live in Vancouver? I mean, it's the only way that they can keep the family together and get these treatments. And I'll take their word. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That said, I haven't heard back yet, what they're doing about this. And yeah, just like you, I've stopped looking at this, in terms of science or medicine, and I've started looking at it psychologically, sociologically. Why are people being this way? And there's some pretty gruesome answers about why people start doing this, why they start scapegoating and blaming each other and demonizing each other. And, as some people might know, I was a peace officer in British Columbia before joining True North. I do have an idea what the ugly side of humanity is. And I don't think the people that, are, so quick to demonize people for not getting COVID shots, I don't think they know what they're feeding. I don't think they know what they're playing with. They've lived, pampered lives. They've been, spared violence, and they've been able to indulge their free speech and all this stuff. But now they're playing with something that they have never seen, and other parts of the world have seen it. And I think we're slowly getting there. And I think we need to pull back, especially over something like this, a charity that gives families of young children a place to stay while they fight for their lives. And just throwing this in the lap of a family whose 4-year-old has cancer, something that no person should experience, much less parents, it's evil. And I think we should stop, take a breath, and at least agree that this is the wrong place for it. And, from there, start talking about other places where it's wrong.
Right. I mean, there's so much wrong with this story. There's so much wrong with the situation in Canada, because, we talked a little bit about how Omicron, it doesn't only affect the unvaccinated. This is simply not true. And that's the reality being borne out in front of us. We can look at the data, we can look at the facts. So it seems like, the government officials don't really have an alternative. Like, their alternative is just cracking down even further on the unvaccinated. And, there's so much wrong with that. There's so much wrong with the idea that we're locking people down, that we're not allowing them to, go out and get fresh air, exercise, be healthy. The fact that there's gyms closed in Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec right now, it's like, if you want a healthy population, if you want a population that with so many people dying of COVID, they have all these underlying conditions. It's like, instead of just wanting to have this silver bullet, everyone get a vaccine and we'll go back to normal. It's like, why don't we address some of the underlying causes in this society? Like a lot of people who die of COVID have vitamin D deficiency. A lot of people who die of COVID are obese or have unhealthy lifestyles. I know one of the things that you've been reporting on a lot at True North is a group of gyms that have sort of defied government orders and refused to close. Other ones are being forced to close. But this is such an important issue that kind of, again, goes against the justification that the government's imposing. Like, if people are sick, don't you think that them going and exercising is healthy, not just for like their physical health, but also mental health? We've seen a huge issue with sort of diseases of despair, suicide, depression, alcoholism, drug overdoses during this time. It's like they're ignoring one side of the equation and only focusing like single-mindedly on this one aspect, like vaccines. So anyway, all that's just to say, I wonder what, from talking to gym owners and sort of speaking to these people, what do you think of the mindset of the gym owners, for instance, that are defying these orders? What is it like for them?
Well, I talked to Sarah Hodson, who's president of the Fitness Council of Canada, and she told me, and she's a gym owner as well, and she told me that gym owners are actually responding to this lockdown very differently from last time. I think last time they agreed, yeah, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. We'll take you at your word. And since then, they haven't seen the data, or at least they have seen data that completely goes against the lockdowns. As far as they know, 0.06% is the transmissibility rate of COVID in gyms. That's the only data that they have. And they are business owners foremost, but it's also their livelihood. I mean, no one just decides to open a gym, because they want to open a business. They're usually fitness enthusiasts. They're people concerned about health. They want to get people healthy. It makes them feel good to watch people get in shape. And so it's not just, about being locked down financially, although that's huge. It's also about just the hypocrisy of saying we're trying to keep people healthy by shutting down a facility where you go to get healthy. And not only that, but if we're trying to keep people healthy, what about mental health? We've heard about mental health like constantly over the past 20 years. People's mental health is it's in terrible shape right now. I mean, people we're talking about lockdowns and avoiding COVID, but we're not really talking about what it's doing to people, not only individuals, but also like societies, communities. People are sick. The way people deal with each other is different. The way we look at each other is different. We are in an age of unprecedented incivility right now. And as I'm a fitness enthusiast, I have been my whole life. I was a bodybuilder. I was a power lifter. I run, I lift. And I've been very aware that my standards are kind of, beyond most people. So I actually don't talk about them much because it makes you sound vain. But in this situation, I turn around and I say, well, you politician, I can see you're not in great shape. Why are you telling me I have to get a shot, but I can't tell you to go jogging? I trust my body. Most people, we're looking at the Olympics coming up. A lot of people pushing back against this are athletes or people in athletic professions like law enforcement. They know their bodies. They know what they can take. They're willing to take it. They've suffered from, avian flu and swine flu, which were, pretty serious back when they happened. I had both. They weren't great, but here I am. So it's just come full circle, and it's great to see gyms, one of which is in Kelowna. And actually, it's interesting because Mr. Furgason at Ronald McDonald House, just before he uploaded the video of him confronting staff, he had posted a video in support of that gym. And so it's good that they're standing up. And again, like Mr. Furgason, they don't quite understand what's happening. We have a constitution. We have rule of law. We can't just willy-nilly shut places down, especially when there's no scientific support for it. And so I think it's good. I think we're on the right track. And I think the more people support any opposition to these rules that make no sense, the sooner we get out of this.
Well, it's great that there's a network of people that are starting to find each other and finding sort of kindred spirits or like-minded people to rally around, because it makes you feel like you're not alone in this, and that you're not the only one that thinks that everything going on in politics right now is totally crazy and totally offside. What you were talking about there about taking sort of control of your own health and not taking the advice of politicians. There's a funny meme going around. Like, I'm a big tennis fan, and obviously when Djokovic got denied entry, or he got detained at the Australian border, people were saying, there's a really healthy guy here, and yet, you have these like kind of fat politicians telling him that he's unhealthy, and meanwhile, the meme is like a picture of him, this like perfect specimen of like male athleticism, like incredibly healthy person, and then you have like a picture of overweight Bill Gates over here, and it says like one of these people is a world leader in public health, and it's like, it just says 1,000 words right there. But I think in some ways it's an opportunity, because people can take control of their own health, right? It's like, I know how to protect myself and my family. We're all taking vitamin D supplements, and I make sure that we all exercise, we go for walks, and we eat healthy, and we have good diets. We don't eat junk food and stuff like that. And it's like, that's going to do a lot more than following whatever latest hoop that, Justin Trudeau or some idiot top doctor is telling us. Like, I know how to protect myself and my family a lot better than their ever evolving set of restrictions and recommendations that are constantly changing, and half the time they're totally contradictory. Well, Harley, I really appreciate this. I hope that you'll continue to report on the Furgason family, and we can find out what's next. I'm so pleased that their story got picked up so broadly, and that they've been able to raise the money, hopefully, that they need to be able to stay in Vancouver and stay comfortable. And I'm sure that they are being inundated with letters of support, and people sort of praying for them and wishing them well. So kudos to you for finding that story, and really just well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candice. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for allowing me to speak up for the Furgasons and everybody else in these situations.
Absolutely. Such an important story. Check it out over at tnc.news. I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is The Candice Malcolm Show.